This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
I'm Jason Clouse. And over the course of my life, I've done a lot of different things, and I've worn a lot of different hats. But this may be my greatest endeavor yet. On this show, we are going to focus on life. We are going to focus on the basic fundamentals. We are going to focus on the silver lining. Because no matter what happens, no matter what is thrown our way, there is a silver lining. There is a lesson to be learned. Sometimes we just have to look a little bit harder, a little bit deeper for it. That's what this show is all about. Sometimes it's going to be rough, sometimes it's going to be raw, sometimes it may be hard to listen to, but it's something that you need to hear. This just got real.
And now, the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network presents its flagship show, the Clouse to the Heart podcast. Here is your host, Jason Clouse.
Welcome to the flagship show of the PFC Entertainment Network. You are listening to the Clouse to the Heart podcast. I'm Jason Clouse. We certainly appreciate you tuning in here this week. I took last week off because as life happens, things will get thrown at you, and you trying to navigate a lot of different things at one time gets to be a little overwhelming, a little exhausting, and it does start to chip away and eat away at time, to the point to where I had time, but not the kind of time that I wanted generally to have when I'm doing something like this, because under no circumstances do I ever want this to feel like it's something that's thrown together at the last minute, or it doesn't get my full attention. That is an obligation I put on myself in terms of this particular endeavor, especially with this show. Now, I made damn good and sure that, as best as I could, that the other shows that are regularly scheduled, those obligations were met, because that's not just on me, that's on the other co-hosts too. Some of them, we have an established schedule, and I can plan around that. With the flagship show here, all honesty, it's there is not a set time that I record this. It's when I have a block of time, or it's like there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I'm gonna tell you, the topic this week is going to be one of those that sparks a conversation, because I already know that not everybody is going to agree with me. Anybody that listens to this program on a regular basis, you have a pretty good idea of where I stand on a lot of different subjects, a lot of different philosophies. I am the way I am. I think the way I think. I put stock in the things that I feel are important. And under no circumstances will I ever try to instill my philosophies, my thoughts, my opinions as the gospel. This is just how I feel about it. This is just how I feel about it, And you take that into consideration when you are dealing with people in real life situations. You know, when you are conducting conversations, whether it be on a personal end or a professional end, you really have to get a feel for the other party. You know, and that, at least with me, that determines how I'm going to communicate and how much I'm going to put into that conversation. Now, if anybody knows anything about me, there are things in this life that I put a tremendous amount of stock, effort, and time into, and then there are things that I do not. And then in the case of this week's topic, this is one of those things that universally we have to have in order to survive in this day and age. My problem comes in where so much is put into that entity that it alters the person to their core. It changes their mindset, changes their approach, changes how they treat people. I have a love-hate relationship with the concept of money. I am a realist. I understand that we have to have money to survive. We have to have money to pay our bills. We have to have money to get the things that we want, to do the things that we want. But when people allow the concept of money to change who they are fundamentally, this is a huge problem with me. I absolutely hate the concept of money. You know, and I know that's going to sound kind of weird in some regards, because I have made no bones about the fact that, like, I have goals for this network, and specifically to get this to a point to where I can make this my living. Like, this is how I would make my living, is doing this show, producing the other ones, to make this network viable. Not just for me, but for all the other co-hosts that dedicate their time and effort into their respective shows, because they deserve to be compensated for their time, for their efforts. But under no circumstances am I looking to get rich. Under no circumstances am I looking to use this as a backdrop to how I treat people. Because, man, I have seen it time and time again, especially with people that I had gone to school with, and they have since gone on and become very successful, and it has fundamentally changed how they treat people. And then it's not just in that realm. I've seen it in a number of different scenarios, and it's very disheartening, because at the end of the day, you know, you ain't taking it with you. You know, when it's all said and done, and you draw your last breath on this planet, are people going to be remembering you for how much money you had in the bank, or by how you treated them? Spoiler, it's going to be the latter more often than not. And if it's not, then that's a problem. That's a whole nother conversation, because that's a whole nother problem with the other party involved. People put too much fucking stock in money, and the premise of it. It's sickening, if I can be honest with you. It's very disheartening, because that tells me all I need to know about what makes these people tick to their core. People gauge their level of success by how much money they have. That's what they put that stock into. That is the determining factor as to what kind of life they lived if, if they're successful or not. And people base their happiness to how much money they have in the bank or how much they're worth. To me, it goes way deeper than that, because money's surface level, man. It really is. If you want to be 100% honest with yourself, it is, without a shadow of a doubt, surface level. This is nothing new. I have had conversations about this for years, and my approach on this has not changed. Even with the levels of success that I have seen, I don't base my levels of success on how much money it generated. I base my level of success of how people feel about me or about my endeavors, my projects, and how they received the end result. It has not a thing to do about money. Now, again, I realize it is important because, again, we have bills to pay. That's what the whole world apparently is based on in this day and age, as to how much money we have in the bank. And I'm just not that guy, and I never will be. Are there things that I want? Yes. Are there things that I am striving for? Yes. I just want to be able to get to a point to where I can facilitate that, where I can do what I want, and that's it. Take care of my family, take care of my financial obligations, and if there's a little bit of wiggle room so that I can treat myself, for the lack of a better term, which is a funny thing unto itself, if anybody knows me, because I am not somebody that treats myself. I'm not somebody that goes, anytime I've got a little extra coin in the pocket, am I going out there and just spending it on inconsequential bullshit? Because that's not what's important. I prioritize every aspect of my life. And if I can be honest with you, money is not nowhere near the top of the list. I mean, it's on there, but it ain't the end all be all. I wish more people adopted that philosophy, because they would be much more pleasant to deal with, much more pleasant to be around, and they would be better humans overall. Because it's been in my experience, and this is not across the board, but it has been my experience that those who have more money tend to be bigger assholes to other people, because they have put themselves on a pedestal. They have put themselves above everybody else. And that's a problem. Big problem. Because at the end of the day, Jack, you ain't no better than anybody else. You breathe air, you bleed blood, you are human. You are not any more important at the end of the day than anybody else. You're not. And then with people who have money, they forget that, unless and until something major comes down the wire that forces them to reevaluate shit. But more often than not, it's too late at that point. You've already established a precedent. You've already established a lot of things that are not going to go well for you when it's all said and done. Because there are some things that money is not going to be able to help you with. Okay? Hate to be the one to tell you that, but it's the honest to God truth. And some jack off is going to be hearing this who has a little bit of money, be like, well, that sounds like a poor person. Brother, I'm not poor. I am very rich in a lot of aspects, and it has not a goddamn thing to do with how much money I've got in the bank, if I can be honest with you, because I have prioritized things. I have deemed what is truly important in life. It has nothing to do with money. I got into a conversation a few weeks ago about this, and and I was met with I don't know what you want to call it, a challenging view based on what I was bringing to the table in that conversation, and I can understand. It's not like I'm not an idiot, you know what I mean? Like I get what's happening, and I appreciate people's different thoughts and opinions and feelings on things of this nature. I don't necessarily agree with it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to shut that person down just because I may not agree with something that they are very passionate about. Our priorities are different. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. That's just, this is how I live my life. That's how they live theirs. That's what they put stock into. The difference is that under no circumstances has that individual ever treated me like I was less than because I may not be as financially successful as they are. That's what makes life so interesting, because you get people from all walks of life. You're going to get different opinions based on different experiences and things of this nature. But then my argument was this, and it was very timely, because there are some things in this world that money cannot buy. And that's what we're going to talk about this week, because if you can believe it, I have something of a list here. Let me just go ahead and pull this up. It's having issues right now, because why wouldn't it? Okay. Pardon me. There are things that money can't buy. They have a list of 10 things here. I'm not going to do a deep dive on all 10. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but it's something that it is worth bringing up in conversation. And if you have an opinion on this, if you have a contrasting view and you want to do a follow-up and come on the show and talk to me about this, you have an open invitation. All you got to do is hit me up on the Clouse to the Heart Facebook page, clousetotheheart@gmail.com. Let's make it happen. Come on the show. Let's have a conversation. I'm all about having a conversation as long as it's done in a cordial, professional, and respectful way. If you can't fundamentally bring that to the table, I got no time for you. Straight up. Straight up. Things that money can't buy. Number one is manners. When you talk about manners, you're talking about you're talking about a piece of a person's internal makeup, their mental approach with everything, because a lot of these things come from within. A lot of these things come from the basic fundamentals of life, because it starts within us. As I said earlier, a little bit ago, it's people will allow money to change them as individuals and how they treat other people. Just because you have X amount of money in the bank doesn't give you a gold card to be a prick to everybody. And it sure as shit doesn't give you the right to put yourself up on some pedestal. But, the way we conduct ourselves with other humans is ultimately what is going to be your legacy when it's all said and done. People need to understand that with every other human that you interact with, they have a story. They have something that they're going through. They have something that they're battling through. Every single person does. Some is more extreme than the others. Some have a lot more personal stake in the game, as it were. But at the end of the day, how we communicate and how we treat one another is ultimately all on you as an individual. And you don't have to be rich to treat people good. You don't have to have money to be cordial, be respectful to one another. You just don't. Because a lot of these things on here, man, like if you stripped every other thing away, it does come down to you as an individual, as a human. And I said it once, I'll say it again, I'll say it a million times. It does come back down to you as a human. That is what's going to be your legacy. That's what people are going to remember. Is how they were treated, how you treated them, how you made them feel, and whether or not they wanted anything to do with you or not, based on your presentation towards them. Another one on here is morale. Morale is a big one, man, because it does kind of splinter off the whole manners thing. Now, I incorporate this a lot to the professional setting, because having good morale in your professional setting is going to be far more beneficial and overall successful than bringing bad morale. Where my shoot job is, my real life job, morale's a big thing, man. Big thing. And it is, I'll give you an example. And I know this is going to piss people off. And you know what? It doesn't even matter. It really doesn't. Where I work, we have 3 shifts, right? Every shift has an identity. Whether it's justified or not, every shift has an identity, has its own environment. Now, a lot of that starts at the individuals who are tasked with running the operation. We have first shift, second shift, third shift. And based on the clientele, based on the management in place, based on the people that work on that during those particular shifts, that dictates morale. You look, from my perspective, on my shift, I'm on third shift, worked midnight hours. We have a very unique morale. It is generally more positive than not because of the people that we work with, the production that we're putting out. It gets to a point to where, we have established ourselves as a group of people that gets the shit done. And with that, management generally doesn't fuck with us unless there's something really wrong, right? But as soon as the next shift starts rolling in, people from the first shift starts rolling in, you can feel in real time that morale change, because as the next shift is coming in, their aura, their presentation is starting to stifle the overall atmosphere of the building. And from our perspective, it's not good because of the general, not across the board, but the general mindset that these individuals bring to the facility. It changes on a dime, man. And it's sobering. It's like, oh my God. That's part of the reason, of a huge reason why I don't seek to change shifts, because I don't want to be a part of that dynamic. I don't want to be a part of that morale because it's not good. There's a sense of entitlement. There's a sense of a lot of ill feelings that go into this. Money ain't got to do it. It doesn't have to do a shitting thing about it, because if we're being honest, those who are on, on the first shift, they don't. Yeah, I am not going to go there. Let me just stop right there. But morale is one of those things that it does come from within us, and what we put out there has nothing to do with money. Because if that was the case, third shift would be deemed what I just said for the next shift, because, well, we get a shift premium. If I'm being honest, we're making more than the other shifts because we get that premium. If everything was based on money, then that dynamic would be, centered on us, and that's just not the case. Our numbers will tell you that. Money can't buy respect. I feel like I could make a whole episode on this shit, because I am so big on the whole respect thing. That you want to talk about individualized. That is individualized. You can't buy respect. That is based solely on what you bring to the table, based solely on how you conduct yourselves. Because I've maintained time and time again, I don't have to like you to be able to respect you. But if I don't like you and I have no respect for you, I got nothing for you. Don't even come across my radar, because I will shut you down before you get the third word out. Bet. I'm not doing it. Respect is a huge thing with me. And the level of respect is very much contingent on what you do, how you act, how you conduct yourself, what you bring to the table. Like I said, I could probably spend an entire hour on that alone. There are people who don't like me for whatever reason. I don't really give a fuck, if I could be honest with you. I don't sit here and lose sleep over it. I am what I am. That's up to you whether you want to fuck with me or not. Like, that's all on you. What I will tell you is that I will match your energy. What I will tell you is I will match what you bring to the table. You don't have to like me, but you damn well better respect me, because I work too hard. I put way too much of myself into all kinds of endeavors not to be respected. I don't need to be liked. I don't need to be popular. I don't need to be celebrated. I just need to be respected. And if you can't do that, I have zero time for you. Character. Money can't buy character. Facts. You know what's funny about the whole character thing is this is something that will change from person to person based on a lot of times by false narrative. They will listen to everybody else talk all kinds of shit, and they hear enough of that, and they won't give the individual an opportunity to bring their best foot forward. Character is one of those things where it's often glossed over in lieu of money. This is one of those that you want to talk about changing an individual based on how much money that you have accumulated or how much money you're worth. Character is generally at the top of the list, if we can be honest. This is the one thing that gets altered immediately. A little bit of success, a little bit of money will change an individual because they have put themselves on something of a pedestal. They now look down on you because you may not have as much of it, you see. And if you allow something like money to dictate your character, you have demonstrated a level of disingenuousness that more often than not is never fixed, because you don't have a foundation to build your presence off of. You are on shifting sand. You are a fly by night individual. You don't know who you are to your core. Facts. Common sense. Common sense, man. That is the one thing that we are lacking in this day and age. Common sense is the one thing that more people need to get a better grasp and understanding of in how they conduct themselves, not just with people, but just in life. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to um, be a certain level of intelligence to have common sense. A lot of your bullshit that you deal with happens because there is a significant lack of common sense. Sometimes, most times, even with all the technological advances that we have at our disposal nowadays, doesn't replace the concept of common sense. If you allow that to, we're going back into the character conversation. Sometimes when something is thrown at us and we're trying to navigate through it, we're trying to, figure out what the best course of action to go is. It really does come down to common sense. What's right, what's wrong? It is black or it is white. You folks that are trying desperately to live your life in the gray area because you have a fundamental lack of commitment to one side or the other, you are a floater. And if you are a floater, the tides of change, the tides of life are going to have their way with you, man. It's going to push you to one side. It's going to push you to that side. It's going to push you down under. It's going to pull you back. Very rarely is it a full steam pushed ahead. It doesn't work like that. Trust. Money can't buy trust. Trust is one of, if not the most important aspects of any kind of relationship. Any kind. If there's no trust, there is no relationship. You are merely cohabiting. You are merely occupying a spot. Because if there's no trust, it goes to a certain level, and that's where it dies. I liken this to the analogy of the piece of paper, right? For those who are watching on Spotify or YouTube, let me do a little demonstration. Because sometimes you need a demonstration. Like you see it, you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. But you know, in order to really grasp this, you really need to get a visual, right? Let's say that this regular piece of paper here that I just ripped out of my notebook. I'm going to be sorry I did that later on because my notebooks are important to me, but be that as it may. You see here a very clean, pristine piece of paper, right? There's lines on it, like this is a general, piece of paper. This is trust. And when trust is broken or compromised in any way, shape, or form, it's like you ball that piece of paper up, right? Certainly nothing like it was. A fraction of the size that it once was. The shape has been manipulated. Everything has changed with this dynamic. Now, those who have an opportunity to try to correct that, they will try to unwad that piece of paper, and you can sit here for hours on end and smooth it out as best as you can. You can grab a fucking iron, you can do anything to try to smooth that trust out, to try to get it back to where it's going to be or where it once was. And you can spend all the time in the world, man, trying to smooth out the wrinkles, but it's never going to be the same. You can write on it, you can submit it, you can do anything, but it's now flimsier. There's cracks, there's wrinkles, there's things on here that remind you that this is in an altered state from which it started. Money ain't got to do a fucking thing with that. That is 100% on you. I have no problem in admitting I have ruined trust before. I have destroyed trust before, but you know what? It's happened to me, and I'm sure in some regard it's happened to you too. Whether it was based on our actions or what we were met with, regardless, be that as it may, it is something that is 100% on us. And again, money ain't gonna do a fucking thing about it. Because I can tell you this: you ain't gonna buy trust back. No amount of money is going to fix this piece of paper. You can buy a new one, but it ain't going to be the same. You can even pull it out from the same goddamn notebook that you just ripped this one out, and it ain't going to be the same. Because different materials went into that individual piece of paper. It's made of the same plant. It's made by in the same way, but there's different elements that went into making that sheet. Patience. Money can't buy patience. This is where I am rich. I am rich in patience, man. To a fault. No, I have no problem in admitting that. I've given people all kinds of opportunities, more than they probably deserve in some cases. And it's patience is one of those things that's one of the most under the radar aspects of life, underappreciated until you exhaust your patience. When patience is exhausted, at that point, man, like changes gotta have to be made one way or the other, because once you're out of patience, you have run out of the opportunity. You've run out of wiggle room. Now I've got truckloads of patience based on what the scenario, what the situation, or who the person is. There are some people that get all of my patience. There are those who have exhausted it, and we don't fuck with that. It's done and over with. And for me to get to that point, you damn well better believe it's because it has everything to do with what you brought to the table. Straight the fuck up. Straight up. Class and integrity can go hand in hand. Money can't buy these things either. This is based and stems from you as an individual. How you conduct yourself, how you treat people, much like many of these other things that we've already talked about here. This is an extension of who and what you are to your core. Again, if money is allowed to dictate how you are about these particular things, it goes back to the whole foundation thing. You don't have it. You don't have a foundation. And in some regards, it does come down to you don't know who you are. You don't know how to be you, because you've allowed money to form a persona, a gimmick. And in some regards, it's a stark contrast to how you started. And the last one here, I think the Beatles said it best: with money can't buy me love. True love isn't paid for. True love isn't something that you can buy at a store or on Amazon or any other entity. Love is one of those things, man. Like, you want to talk about a piece of you. If it's genuine, if it's authentic, it comes from within. You can buy your guy or girl anything that they want. Could be a new dress, could be a pair of shoes, could be a piece of podcasting equipment, could be a jersey of their favorite player. It could be a fucking car. But that ain't love, man. That shit's materialistic. And materialistic things can be taken away from you just as fast as you got it. But love, if it's true, if it's real, if it's authentic, if it's genuine, will withstand every test that comes its way. Every challenge, every attempted roadblock, anything and everything that comes across the radar. If it's really true, and if it's really real, and if it's really genuine and authentic, it will sustain the damnedest storms. Whether, and on the flip side of that, like a storm rolls through, it could knock down your house. It could destroy your car. It could ruin anything and everything that you bought and paid for. If that's what you put love, quote unquote, into, then man, you are fucked from word go. Because that ain't love. It's materialistic. And it ain't, if that's what you correlate to love, man, you've got problems. And a lot of them. Because it ain't real. I want you folks to really evaluate yourselves this week. I want you to really think about what you deem success is, what you feel like success should be, what it looks like. I want you to think about how you treat other people. I want you to think about how you talk to other people. I want you to really do an honest deep dive on your existence this week. Are you genuine? Are you authentic? And I don't give a flying fuck what you do in a public persona, how you put yourself on social media, because I mean, that's a whole gimmick unto itself for a lot of you. Because I know without a shadow of a doubt, what you put out there in social media is a stark contrast to how you are in real life. I am not one who will call people out by name. But God damn it, do I want to sometimes. Because it infuriates me that you're trying to pull the wool over people's faces when I know behind the mask lies a wolf. Feel me? It would be real easy to really just rattle people's world. But at what point, what good's that going to do? Sure, from one aspect, it would provide something of a chuckle for me because I feel like disingenuous people should be exposed in an effort to protect other people that they may come across their radar later on down the road. But at the end of the day, and we'll put a bow on it with this. Of all the things that money can't buy, money ain't going to save you from, is karma. Because karma will come and collect regardless of how much money you may or may not have in the bank. Karma don't do no jobs, man. It will always come back around and smack you right upside your fucking head. And that is what ultimately will determine whether you were truly rich in life. With that, appreciate everybody tuning in here this week. Check out the online store, pfcstore.printify.me, pfcspring.printify.me. That has all of our spring-inspired apparel and other merchandise on there. There's hats, there's jerseys, there's ringer tees, there's garden flags, there's all kinds of things over there. So go ahead and check all that out. If you are a fan of any of the shows on this network, we certainly appreciate your support. It don't cost you nothing to look. But I'm sure at some point that there will be something like, oh, that looks kind of cool. But in all seriousness, we do appreciate you guys tuning in. And hopefully you take something away from this episode. And if you have any questions, comments, feedback, if you want to be on the show, if there's something that you would like to talk about, let me know. Easiest thing in the world to get you on the show here. We'll figure out a time. We'll figure out the place. We'll figure out whatever we need to do, and we'll make it happen. That's what all this is about, man. It's a platform to give a voice to those who feel like they have none. Because everybody's got a voice, and voices are meant to be heard. With that, go out, be awesome to yourselves and to each other, and we'll see you next week, right here on the Clouse to the Heart podcast, the flagship show of the PFC Entertainment Network.